There we go. All right. So good morning to everyone. We continue with our study of Hilchot Shabbat, Halakos Neros. I guess it's very apropos. We're talking about lighting things on Hanukkah. So fantastic. Here we go. Bruce is being outside the mitzvah early today of having sufganiyot. Bruce is getting started on. Okay, last time we finished Sivkot on Ches. So it's Reish Samach Gimel, Sivkot on Ches. We finished last time. We're going to start with Tes, and we saw last time that if you had many balabatim together in one place, there were two opinions. Some say that everyone should light and make a bracha. Others said that not so sure, and only one should light with a bracha. And then we need another chair. Perfect. Okay. And we saw that the minhag for the Ashkenazim that Ramah seems to record here is that we follow the first opinion, the one that many balabatim who are together, everyone should, obviously one representative from each family, typically the wife, should light where they're eating. The Mishnah Berurah had said, just to remind us at least what we read last time, the Mishnah Berurah had said that if these various balabatim are together for Shabbos and they each have a cheder miyuchad, they could also light if they would like in their room, but it doesn't sound like it has to. The word was Yachol levarech sham. They could still do it, as I think most people today do, which is that everyone kind of lights in one general area. The theory being here that the more light, the more you can see. Perhaps you could say the more beauty that exists as a result of it. So that's where we left off last time. So we begin today with Sifkat on Tes. In my edition, it's a page Lamed Zayin and 6 lines from the top of the page, where the Shulchan Aruch here actually says something very important, that this particular case may not actually be important to us, but the takeaway from it is, he writes here, Hamadliki bezavios habayis ve'ochlim bechotzer. Aim ein haneros arukos chedolkos ad halayla have bracha levatam. He says if a person lights in a corner of the house, and then they eat in the chotzer, in the courtyard. Okay, in the times of the Talmud, most homes would open up to a courtyard. So there were a few houses in the courtyard opened up to an area, then that courtyard would then lead to a more public thoroughfare. Okay, so let's say you decide you light in your house, which is pretty normal, and then you go ahead and you eat in the chutzner. Now we'll talk about why you're eating in the chutzner in a moment, because that's a little bit odd. Why are you eating in the courtyard in the first place? It's nighttime. I mean, maybe it's not dangerous because it's your own personal courtyard, but why are you eating outside?
That was typical.
Why?
Well, I guess because of the heat also.
Okay, good. So there'll be exactly for external factors. We're going to see the Mishnah Berurah is going to quote a couple other reasons, but there could be factors inside your house that are pushing you outside of your house.
It's also the homes weren't that big,
right? So maybe if you had a few families together, right?
Right, or even if not, I mean they were very small, and then you have tables. You have a table out there.
Right.
It might be that you're not even eating alone. That I don't know.
Right. So. Excellent. So good. We'll see in a moment with some other reasons as well. So if the candles are not long enough that they will burn until nighttime, then it is a bracha levatala. It is a wasteful blessing. It's using God's name for no good reason.
What does that have to do with eating outside? The reason you light the candles so you have light for your meal.
Ah, good.
So
No. You can't eat afshar lehishtamesh bahem. Elo liro tam bilvad. They have to be seen.
So that's the rule when it comes to Neiros Hanukkah. When it comes to Neiros Shabbos, you must use them. This is exactly going to be the problem now, right? By Hanukkah candles. It's all about it should be seen by anyone who walks by, in the house, out of the house. It should be seen but not used, but Shabbos candles, if we had a Haneros Halalu for them, we would say just the opposite. Haneros Halalu chayavim lihishtamesh bahem. You must use these lights. Now we're going to when we get a little further into the topic of candles, we're going to see that it's a problem to use them for reading. That's a separate issue because then you might tilt the candle. We're going to get to that. That's when it comes to the Shabbos candles. You can't use it for reading because of tilting, and then you're going to melt. Whatever. We'll get there. Okay, but that's a sort of a special halacha because the rabbis were worried that you would use the lights and then cause another problem in the process. But generally speaking, you can use the lights
because Rav, what those rabbis were dealing with was lights that essentially had a wick floating in oil, and if they were reading and wanted to increase the light, they would lean over, pinch, and pull that wick up a little higher automatically without thinking about it. And to avoid that.
Exactly. So that's why when we get to that, we'll talk about that halacha about reading by the candlelight. But you must use it. So take a look here at Mishnah Berurah Lamed Tes Mem Aleph. Here we go. Mishnah Berurah writes, "V'ochlim b'chulei ayin lekaman sof siman reish ayin gimel." He says, look 10 simanim ahead of us now in the Magen Avram and Sif Katon Tezvav, who says the ein muter lechol bechotzer. You're generally not allowed to eat in the chotzer. Rak dafka b'mitztayer harba beveso, unless you are, not literally in pain, but you are uncomfortable. You're uncomfortable, and I would hear harbe. You're very uncomfortable in your house. Why? He gives one example. Vishum zvuvim, because there are flies. You have an infestation of flies. They're flying and they're kamikazeing into the soup and into the chicken and in mamish it's destroying the Shabbos. They're just v'chayotze. But that's just an example. BJ's example is also relevant. They didn't have air conditioning or heating in those days, and I guess it's better if it's cold. It's better in your house than outside. But let's go with the air conditioning. There's no air conditioning, and so but at least you have a breeze. You put something up, and you're I don't know, you get some cooling effect in the evening. So maybe you're very uncomfortable that whatever it is, you were pushed out of your house by the circumstances. Halav hachi, but if it wasn't such a circumstance, sarich lechol dafka b'mkom ner, then you have an obligation to eat where the ner, that Shabbos candle, was lit. That's where you should be eating, unless there is some other problem that is occurring. And he says, Mishnah Berurah Mashik Asav Nisham. We'll get there probably in a few weeks, but this is where you're ending up lighting in the chutzner. Now, the other thing that's important to consider here. Correct.
You didn't say, you said lighting. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're eating in the chutzner, lighting in the house. So now what's the problem? Let's keep going, and then we'll reflect after we read all the Mishnah Berurah comments. Bechotzer, mashma de'im ochel babayis. If you did eat in your house, af she'ein dolekas ad halayla, even though you did not eat. Sorry, even though the flame did not last until the night. Meaning, when did you start Shabbos? When did you start Shabbos? Early, right? Which was pretty common. It was pretty common because they didn't have so much lights at night, so they a lot of people, and the Gemara talks about this in Brachos, they started Shabbos early.
You get the impression that he's not really commenting on the era of the Talmud. He's really commenting on the current.
That they're eating.
Era.
Yeah, and
that's what it sounds.
And they also, by the way, I think I mentioned this a number of times in the iteration of this year before it was on Sundays, but I once did I was in a Rebel class and I did a paper about the Trumas Hadeshen. And so I went through a number of different shilas. The Trumas Hadeshen had 354, one for each day of the year, and the first shaila that he gets, it's a question: did he make them up, or was it made up based on situations that he had encountered as a rabbi? He was living in Austria and 1500s. He talks about how people would eat Shabbos meals. They would finish. And then they would, while it was still daylight, they would go for a walk along the riverbank in the local river there in his town. And then they would come back, and then they would, because it was all about saying Kriya Shema too early. And so he was giving an example that on Friday night, we're done eating, and we take a walk, and we're obviously doing things very early. He justifies the minhag of saying Kriya Shema early and how, but you see from that Jews, particularly, in Eastern Europe, the summer, the sun goes down very late. So people were, certainly after Plag HaMincha, I believe, taking in Shabbos and eating. And so and so to BJ's point, that is also relevant in the times of Mishnah Berurah, in Poland. So after ein dolek es ad halayla sagi, it's enough. V'lo have bracha levatala. It's not a bracha levatala. She'af shadayin yom, even though it was still daytime, the meal finished when it was daytime, and the candles, the oil was enough just for a couple hours, and it was still daylight out because it was after Plag HaMincha, and that time was a little bit stretched out from Plag HaMincha to sunset. Yesh lo hana, that's still fine. You got benefit, v'simcha, and joy, b'shas achila min haneros. At the time of eating from the candles, even though yes, there might have been some coming in through the windows, some light. This added and increased, and that's not a bracha levatala if you got some usage out of it. U'mitzvah min hamuvchar, of course, it's the best way to do the mitzvah. The choicest of ways to do the mitzvah, sheyas haneros arukos, to make longer candles, sheyudolkos ad halayla, so that it burns into the night. Even if you want to eat when it's still daylight, after Plag HaMincha, that's the best way. But it's not a bracha levatala if at least you got some benefit from the candles when it was Shabbos, but not completely dark, where you're still getting some light from the outside.
In today's era, we don't get anything.
That's correct.
I mean, we don't really. Let's put it this way: we do get a benefit in that there's a nice aura that's right, and you have the feelings of. But in terms of usage, right? If we are obligated to use them, really not, right? I mean,
you're 100% right.
Well,
So when I'm looking at
mixing in with the other lights.
Yeah, but
so
I don't think so. And I think that
well, it's giving some light, and
is it right on your table so that you could see with it, or
but it doesn't have to be right on it. You don't have to read. You just have
So
to
I don't think you're getting anything extra.
So I will say,
I look at it the other way around.
Is
They're
that
getting
this
you're
is
getting an extra benefit from the other lights. You have the light, the Shabbos, because you're lighting the Shabbos light first.
It's
I don't
very,
think so.
it's a very holy
You
way
could
of
be
looking at
sitting
it.
there, and we aren't even aware sometimes if sometimes they go out, right?
Yeah, that's
I mean,
true.
sometimes they go out, and we're not even aware of it. It makes no difference. I mean, so this is actually very interesting because you look at this, it's almost like creating a problem that you might not necessarily have come up with, to say, oh, wait a minute, you're not getting benefit of it. It's a bracha levatala. You could argue and say, well, every time now it's a bracha levatala.
No, but
I'm not using it.
I think it's the opposite. I think this is the raya. This is the proof that we do derive benefit. He's saying that we're going to derive benefits, even if it's a day.
If you're
Meaning-
living in your room,
If you live
in your room and going to eat elsewhere,
Yeah, that's
so
problem.
then
Or
you already
mess
have
up-
that
or you
kind
mess
of
up your
situation.
conscience.
Plus Kiddush, you're supposed to look at them at some point in Kiddush. You're supposed to look at the candles. that are
We're
lit,
gonna
so
get to
maybe
that. That's
the
intense
benefit.
simonim
So
for them.
you
Where
raise
that's why
actually
they
an
kiddush.
interesting
So
question.
maybe that's the benefit.
Because when we have dinner here in shul, we're
Right.
lighting
Mhm.
candles in the hallway,
Right.
and we're eating in a
Right.
totally different room.
Right.
So I'll
Yeah.
I'll happily comment on that. So a few things.
Different law.
I think that the proof that by the way, you should know that what BJ's point, certainly as someone who loves learning halacha, it's something that bothers me. I'm going to justify in a second. And as you should know, there are many poskim who struggle with how in today's day and age, right now, how do we derive that benefit? But if you think back to the halacha we had a moment ago, right, or at the end of last week, so what do you have? Multiple balabatim who are sharing a space, and what happens? We said the release Ashkenazi psak halacha is that each one can light and each one can make a bracha, even though the first one really added the most light to this whole situation. Now I can see, and then we have the second and the third one, and by the time you have the third one, you're like, well, what's this adding? And the Mishnah Berurah had said that there is some incremental, maybe not noticeable, but there's some incremental increase, but mostly even BJ, there is extra simcha from the additional sort of beauty of the
100%.
light.
That
So
I
that
get, so-
so that's why. Now, so I'll add
But
one
that's
fact.
not usage, right?
You're right. It's a usage of. It's not. It's a hana of the beauty. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm acknowledging. I'm masking with you 100% that you wouldn't be tripping over yourself if those lights weren't on.
If he would have left that out of his explanation here, it would never have occurred to me. This is a bracha levatal. Wait a minute, really? Now I have to question all of these things. I wish we'd never have said it, frankly. that was the point. I mean, because I didn't get that from upstairs.
Actually, you know what? Let's take a look at the bracha levatal comment in the Mishnah Berurah, and then I'm going to continue on my soapbox here about this situation. He says here, "Have bracha levatal memalef shekevan she'enu yochol lasos shum tashmish etzlan." Since there is now, let's be very careful with the words here. A person is not able to get any usage from them when they come back at night because they went out already.
The use of the word tashmish, I think, is a reference, and how he's using it. It's tashmish mita.
I'm not so sure that that's necessarily the reference here. In fact, if anything, by the way, there's a halacha that we talked about this once actually. That there's tashmish shemita there's no light. There's something that you'll find in halacha. So I don't think he's actually referring to that. Why? He's saying there's no usage.
Are you blushing? I said,
no. That's the Zoom that the Zoom did that. Shelo yikashal eitzma Evan. We had a whole other. Don't you remember this, Simeon? We had like 2 simanim about this whole topic. It comes up in Mishnah Berurah in the Shulchan Aruch, and we spent like at least 2 or 3 classes on it, and I didn't blush the whole time. So that why you didn't trip over sticks or stones. So less be mishum shalom bayis. There's no shalom bayis that emerges from it. And if there's a little bit of darkness, I got some minuscule benefit as it relates to the seuda. Leka isur, there is no prohibition. Even if it doesn't burn till night. And even if I go ahead and I eat in the chatzar. So what's he saying? That there was some minuscule benefit. I'm going to work within his words for a second. I chopped 1 potato and I used I chopped 1 thing of lettuce that was going to be used in a few minutes at the meal, and that's it. And then I went outside. Great, I'm good. No bracha levatala. But I would also add here that because if you go back to the language of the Mishnah Berurah, who had said when it came to the 2 families joining together, he had said, let me just find his words. I don't want to misquote him. It was in Lamed Hey. Remember? The Cholma demitosef ora yesh ba shalom bayis v'simcha yisera lahana asor. So I believe that any time that even though it's you're adding light, it's not creating light that's now newly lighting up the area, but you're simply adding, there is what he says, shalom bayis and simcha yisera. Now, I'm pulling again, I am acknowledging that I'm trying to work within what's here to justify what is minhag Yisrael. This is not just a modern Orthodox psak halacha. You go any Welt, they're lighting with a bracha, and they have other lights in their house, and that's okay. And I think that it does add a certain aura. I think that was a good word that BJ used before. It has a certain aura that there are candles. We light them. We try to light them where we are eating. Now, someone brought up what we do here in shul. We light in the hallway, and then we have a meal in the social. Lefi and the Izdaiti, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with it. Because the light you're not adding light in that sense. The hallway lights are much more powerful than any lights that are on the little tray. And you're not. No one's sitting there and looking at the candles or even noticing them. And the beautiful. That's in the hallway. I'm not saying people don't pass by and they see it and there's something. That's why I said I'm not saying is I think it's prohibited from a halachic perspective. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with it because from a halachic perspective, it would make much more sense. If there were lights in the room. Often you notice sometimes at these meals that the lights are dim, the overhead lights. In which case the Shabbos lights would be even more useful.
Well,
So
last dinner,
it was in there.
It was inside.
Yeah, there was a guy who insisted we should light it in there. No, I think I've at times tried to. We should move it in there because sometimes it's not practical if there are maybe children running around, people are worried, they're going to knock it over and whatever. And okay, I hear if there's a fire concern, what are you going to do? But it's better if it's there. People can, while they're eating, they can look at it, they can see it. It's present in the room where they're eating.
You used to
Now-
light them in the kitchen, and that would be okay. In the shul kitchen.
In the shul kitchen,
Yeah,
Is
and
that
that's
right?
fine
But-
because you use.
Yeah.
them.
because
But-
people
but
are
that-
coming in and out and using it.
But so the same token, like I was thinking that, okay, even if you eat in the in like the center, like outside, the person who's preparing the food still needs light in order to bring the food out.
That's what he's saying here.
So-
That's why he's saying it's not a bracha levatala. If there's some,
So you're getting,
even though you're eating outside and it doesn't even last till nighttime,
right?
he's saying as long as you get some usage from it,
Exactly.
it's not a bracha levatala at that point.
And it's
Meanwhile,
not clear,
it's
by the way,
woman
what you.
who's making.
Mhm.
So the benefit is immediate because she's.
Good, so that's why-
Exactly.
I always
exactly.
Not you. the
So
one-
the
Right.
most complicated
So,
scenario
making the
of
bracha.
all of these scenarios is what happens when you're really eating. You light candles and then you walk over to someone's house for Shabbos dinner, and by the time you get back, the lights are out. That to me, is a tough one, and if a person is in that scenario, you should try to use instead of the tea lights that are the 1 hour, you should use whatever. And I would also say that before you leave, particularly the woman who's lit, because now she's accepted Shabbos, she should stop and get hana from it. Like literally look at the candles and derive benefit and pleasure from just looking at it and the beauty of it before you run out the door. Because otherwise it's quite questionable whether or not you can really make a bracha in the first place. And so I'm at least suggesting get some hana from those lights in those first moments, right? Even if it's that simcha yisera that exists from the beautiful Shabbos candles. They're on this beautiful candlesticks and whatever it is. And if you can stick around for a few moments after you light and really enjoy it, I think that it's at least something. It's at least something.
If it
That's all I'm
was a
saying.
man doing the lighting, he probably lights and runs out the door.
And that's
A
problematic.
woman- I think women weren't raised that way. I think that when they light the candles, they stop for a moment and appreciate them. And so it's just part of the ceremony. It's automatic if a woman is doing it.
And I'll also add,
They make the bracha, they're closing their eyes,
Exactly.
right?
And
Anyway,
they're
so
looking at
they're
it.
opening their eyes, so it's like right off the bat, it's
Yeah,
part of the
exactly.
bracha, they're getting a no.
and I'll actually add a very important point, BJ, because if a man
That's
lights
what
the
I
candle,
was
we're about to actually talk about this here in Sif Yud, he doesn't necessarily accept Shabbos.
Right.
And therefore you didn't benefit from the lights on Shabbos. The woman for her, that's the beginning of Shabbos. So at least she's benefiting. That's the whole point. Like you took in Shabbos early, but it's Shabbos for you. So then you benefit from the lights on Shabbos. But if you're running to Mincha right after you light because you're going to drive in the car, so you're not accepting Shabbos, make sure they last long enough so that when you return home, you're benefiting from lights.
We get to 6 hours.
The 6 hour ones.
But if your wife is getting hana from the candles and you're not the one who's making the bracha, so somebody's getting hana.
That's
it's
it.
Not a bracha.
That's it.
So
Yeah.
why so you're saying only if the man is by himself?
Yeah, you're all by yourself. You
Yeah.
light, you run to shul, you drive your car to Mincha, and by the time you get back, I don't know. You just want to make sure that the lights are still on. Okay,
Excuse me,
let's. Yeah,
Ron, I have a question, and I lost connectivity for about 30, 40 seconds.
okay.
So it perhaps was asked, but if the concern is a bracha levatola, why don't we paskin that when you're going to your friend's house, that the woman lights candles in that house?
The reason that you would think not to do that is that there's a mitzvah to light up and to make sure there are lights in your house. And if you will be staying over on Shabbos, so now you are a guest in someone else's house, like that you're staying there. Even on Hanukkah, by the way, this halacha is relevant. If you
That's what I thought. Ish Uveso is related to Hanukkah. I didn't understand that you're relating it also to Shabbos.
Well, if you're staying over somewhere for Shabbos, that's the whole halacha of, go back to Sif Ches, was Shnayim Shlosha Balabatim Ochem Makom Echad, and they're staying in one place, they're staying in one place together. So,
but here, isn't it? There's also Ein Kiddush Elam Makom Suda.
that certainly, that's why
Simeon, I think Simeon is right. That's
that you light where.
you should light. It's preferable to light where you're going to eat.
So I think when it comes to shop,
Eating outdoors.
so
Well, they say here you could certainly eat. You could light in the chutzner. That's a good idea
Well,
too.
but that kind of makes sense, because if it's not Shabbos yet and you're not going to be home, you're not lighting in the house and not getting any hana out of it, what's the point?
So I think there seems to be a move here that we're reading in all these lines from the Shulchan Aruch, that there is something about lighting at home. There is something about lighting, even if it sounds like even if you're not going to be there right away, you're going to come back later. But there's something about adding shalom bayis to your home, right, to your home, and it and that is the most important concern in each home. There should be shalom bayis. So if your home is not your home for Shabbos, you're staying by somebody else, then then you need to light where in the place where that's your bayis for Shabbos. But even if you're eating out on Friday night, it seems to me, and I'm sure I'm about to be attacked by what I'm about to say, which is fine. You should attack me. That it seems to me that you should light in your home, but you just need to make sure that you come back and the lights are still on, the Shabbos candle is still on, that you're going to get a benefit from it. Now, I know people also light here. I acknowledge that that's not necessarily Minhag Yisrael. I'm not here to squash Minhag Yisrael, that the people will light here in shul, or if they're going to a friend's house, sometimes they'll light over there. I'm not here to say it's a bracha levatala, but if you're reading what we've read so far, all this sort of leads to lighting in your space. Otherwise, why is the bachur, for example? Remember the bachur who's eating it somewhere? He eats somewhere else. Why he should light in his room? Why? Because he needs shalom bayis for his own room, so that when he gets back to his room, he's not tripping over, because he doesn't clean up. He's a bacher, so he's tripping over everything in his room, and he does. That's how I'm reading. I'm not saying that I'm not a posek. That's not my job.
This day and age when we've set our lights to go on and off before Shabbos, I mean that's shalom bayis enough. You should be able to light.
Right. I hear we have other lights. The question is, do we make that bracha in our space, right? That we're staying in.
Well, I have.
You might be able to extend. By the way, Hinda's logic might extend that when I make the bracha on the Shabbos candles, I'm also having in mind all the other lights in my house, right? We talked about that. So if God forbid the lights were out when I came back, maybe I could still rely on the fact that bracha extended to the other lights in the house, and therefore I was not a bracha levatala in that sense. Now I'm stretching here. I can feel my muscles really working out.
I just had the reverse. My timer setting was off. We went out for dinner.
Yeah.
Came home. It's all dark, but
Shabbos candles on.
So we were able to do things you have to do there. Right.
Yeah, that's the best. That's
So
the
you
best.
slept in the dining room?
That was a
Right.
different setting, so that didn't bother. But
Okay.
I think in part we're making a distinction between having candles where you eat versus getting hana from the candle.
Right.
Because you can have hana from the candle. That kind of widens the range of where you can light and what benefit you get at it.
So remember, I thought about this. There are two tracks of candle lighting that have really, in my mind, emerged. There are two tracks. One track is that each family has a responsibility to light.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, so that's why if, let's say, the wife is home, she's somewhere for Shabbos, and the husband's not there, she lights in her house. And if the husband is staying somewhere else, he has an obligation to light candles with a bracha if he has his own space where there's no other balabatim who are lighting the candles, that he can be mishtatef with them, he can join with them. If he is staying at someone else's house, so he can make sure there's light in his own home, in his own space, but someone else is making a bracha and he's also sharing a space with somebody else, so he doesn't need to make a bracha. We talked about that. So I would think that there's I think that there is something to that your home has to have those lights, right? And that's why, like, the wife in that example, she's home, there's lights, it makes the bracha. There has to be connection to your house, and your house could be somewhere that's not your physical, what your title says on. It could be you're staying somewhere else. It could be that it's a hotel. It could be that it's some friends that you're staying by. It could be your relatives that you're staying by. But it has to be where you are. That's my takeaway. We have more to read, so maybe I'll change my mind as I'm being open to read as I'm relearning this all along with you. But that's where I'm holding right now. But I'm not again. Do what you continue to do. That's Minhag Yisrael. Minhag Yisrael is very powerful. I've said it many times before. Minhag Yisrael is very, very powerful. Okay, let's keep reading now. Yes. Okay, so let's go Sif Yud. Sif Yud in Reish Lamed up on top. Now we're gonna get a halacha sefer named here. Laval halachos gedolos. It's the name of a halacha sefer. Okay, rarely do you get names in Shulchan Aruch, but sometimes no better way than to identify who said this. According to the Bal Halachos Gedolos, Kevan shehidlik ner shel Shabbos, chal alav Shabbos v'nesa b'melacha. I think here this topic we'll all be able to agree on, which is great. Okay, since you've lit the Shabbos candles, Shabbos begins immediately, and melacha is now prohibited. Val pizeh nogos ktsas noshim, and upon this there is a minhag of some women. Shacha sheberchu v'hidliku haneros, after they made the bracha and they lit the candles. Well, what's still in their hands? They still have a wick in their hands, or a match. We call it a match. He's going to say, they're holding a wick still that they're lighting with. Now, what do? I'm holding a lit candle, and how do I deal with this? Because the moment I sounds here like, read the order, by the way. Careful again. Sha'achar sheberchu v'hiliku haner. So I'm not sure he made the bracha and they lit, then which was the reverse of what we had said.
So he's saying that you make the bracha first and then you
which actually, if you go back to Sif Hey, that matches up with what the Shulchan Aruch had said previously. He had said, when you light, you make the bracha, and he didn't say, and then you light and then make the bracha, which is what most women do.
When you light,
right? Kishi Yadlik, make the bracha, which is like any other thing. You make the bracha before you do the action. It was the Ramah, if you remember, who said switch it.
But there was that whole thing, even if about you could light and then you had a slight delay. You can't light past the time of Shabbos, but you can make the bracha a little bit. You have to light.
That was the whole question, right?
Extra
that's already the mission. That's already the mission of Berurah. But the Shulchan Aruch at least is internally consistent with himself. It seems like you may be thinking here. This, according to at least the Baal Halachos Gedolos, is saying you light. You make a bracha and light. So what do? I'm stuck. The moment I lit the candles, it's Shabbos, but now I'm holding a match in my hand or something, and I can't actually go because that's mechabed. That's what I'm turning on malachos. So what do?
But
So
that doesn't make sense either, because if you're making the bracha,
so after I finish the action, now it's Shabbos.
and then you light, then you cover your eyes.
No,
He's
not covering his eyes here. That's the Ramah. That's the Ramah's trick.
Right, actually,
That's the Ramah's.
You obligated one candle. Now you.
So once you light the one,
That's excellent. So what do? He says here, Mashlichos la'aretz hapsila. So what you should throw to the ground the wick, the match. Should be yadon that's in her hand. She likuba, that she used to light. She should not actively put it out. This is very relevant. Very relevant for when? Yontif.
Right.
When you light Yontif candles, and you light the candles,
like a dish.
you have a little dish. You put the match.
That was called an ashtray.
An ashtray.
In the old
days, right? An ashtray. You would put it down into this. So he would solve it the same way. He would just place, drop it down. You could drop it into a bowl or something like that, and then it would go out eventually on its own. Now that's the Baal Halachos Gedolos opinion. You're going to see we don't follow that opinion. If they make a stipulation, the woman makes a stipulation before she lights, until the chazan says baruch hu, meaning until the at shul they're saying ma'ariv. Moil, that helps. Now that's one. That's a second opinion now.
Even though she's made the bracha?
Even though she's made the bracha. She thinks it's fine. She says in her head, I'm not accepting Shabbos until the shul gets up to Marav.
For that matter, what you should just say, I'll accept Shabbos like in 5 minutes.
Right. V'yesh omrim.
Yeah, remember, Rob, this is how we handle Yom Kippur.
Correct. We're going to talk about it in a second. You're absolutely right. And some say, actually, that Tanai doesn't help. The Tanai doesn't help. So you see, there is an opinion, very important. There is an opinion that says Tanai does not work in general for Shabbos candles. So just file that away.
The man as well.
It doesn't matter who, man, woman,
man
everybody. There is an opinion that it doesn't work. This is an opinion that belongs to the Hagos Maimoni. Okay, so just remember that one because it's important. In 3 minutes, it'll be important. V'yesh cholkim, and there are those who argue al bal halachos gedolos, who argue altogether on this first general approach of the bal halachos gedolos. V'omrim she'en kabbalah Shabbos tali b'hadlakas haner ela b'tfilas arvis. They say candlelighting has nothing to do with accepting Shabbos. Rather, it's when the kahila davens. That's Shabbos. That's when we can talk about Shabbos. Because when the Chazan says Baruch Hu, Hakol Portion Mimalachtam. That's the call that everyone stops what they're doing, all the malacha at that moment. Ulididan, and for us, this is in the time of the Shulchan Aruch. Now he's talking. Kevan shehischilu mizmor shir liyom haShabbos. When you begin saying mizmor shir liyom haShabbos, which was added on later on, well after the Talmud, and then by the way, he didn't even have Kabbalah Shabbos. By the way, he didn't have L'chadodi and all these things. That came along a little after his time. So then they added all the other Mizmorim of Tehillim and the L'chadodi, but for them they start with Mizmor shir liyom haShabbos.
But Mizmor Shir precedes Baruch Hu.
Correct, and he says Have keBaruch Hu Liditu. That's like their Baruch Hu. Meaning when we say Mizmor shir liyom haShabbos, we accept Shabbos like the way that they used to do when they said Baruch Hu, which is today the halacha. But when you get to Mizmor shir liyom haShabbos, assuming it was not already dark. If it's already dark, forget it. Then it's Shabbos. But if it's like in the summer, you're davening early and you remember while it's L'chadodi, you're saying L'chadodi, you're like, ooh, I forgot to do one thing, and you run over to the office and you make one phone call here, and then good. Once you get to Mizmor shir liyom haShabbos, you accept Shabbos. That's it. Now, the Ramah very importantly adds here. By the way, there was no Mishnah Berurah on any of what we just read, just so you know. The Mishnah, so the Ramah here continues and says, "V'haminag." Now, BJ will have to report for us what the Sfaradi minhag is. Okay, but here's the Ashkenazi minhag. V'haminag she'osa isha hamadlekes, that the woman who lights mikabela Shabbos b'hadlaka. The Ashkenazi minhag is that when a woman lights candles, she accepts Shabbos with the hadlaka. Imlo shetasne tchila, unless she makes a stipulation first. V'afil tanai belev sagi, even in your heart, you think it. That's enough. So this was Simeon was mentioning a moment ago, Yom Kippur. I've used this example before, right? Everyone goes to shul on Yom Kippur at night. How could you do such a thing? How do you get in the car after you light candles? And the answer is that every woman should have in mind when she lights the candles, maybe she verbalizes it or at the very least just thinks it, which is I'm not accepting Yom Kippur right now because I have to go in the car in a moment. When I get to shul and the chazan says, Kol nidurei, then I'll know it's Yom Kippur.
Not yet.
Right,
what,
correct.
The Ramah doesn't say here, Medina Ting. Right, I think he's telling you.
He's saying even for Sarah,
Everybody.
right? This is consistent with what, yeah.
I think it's important. I mean, the Ramah makes a lot of pronouncements that apply to everybody. It's not just Ashkenaz, terms of left or right.
Right.
It's sometimes he's telling you what shalacha is.
Right.
Now it's very seldom where he'll tell you a universal minhag, but I think
Right.
seems
He's
to be
saying
what
here he's done it.
That's what he's done.
Right.
I mean,
So-
certainly certainly minhag.
Right. Now, very importantly here, I'll just read one more phrase in the Ramah, then we'll do a couple of Mishnah Berurahs, and then we're going to call it a day. He says, "Al shar b'nei Adam," shar b'nei Habayit. Al shar b'nei Habayis mutarin b'melacha ad baruch. Just because she lights does not that does not force Shabbos upon everyone else in the household. For them, they can. For them, Shabbos comes about when they say Baruch Hu or Mizmor shir liyom haShabbos, whatever however you want to formulate it. But bottom line is, the woman lighting does not extend to everyone else in the house. Now, take a look at Mem Beis in the Mishnah
Can I
Berurah.
ask a question? So,
Yeah.
when a mother's lighting with her daughters,
Yeah.
does that mean that they're accepting Shabbos at the same time as their mother?
Now,
Or is that
how they she says the bracha and they light along with her kind of thing, or
Yeah, I mean, it's like more like a chinuch kind of thing.
right? So she's saying it, and they're saying amen, or they're saying it along with her, something like
Right.
that. And they said the minors, these are above, these are
Let's go both cases.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I certainly with it's probably good chinuch that if they're lighting along with her, I'm saying from a chinuch perspective, that they accept Shabbos at that point because that's what the mom's doing. And if you're trying to teach them how it's supposed to happen, probably good chinuch that they should be consistent doing with what their mother's doing. If they're lighting independently, it's interesting. I was going to say I can't ask Kinder this question, but because you had boys, but
But for example, you have a young lady, right?
yes.
So
yes. So what will happen when she gets to a certain age? Are you saying what now? What happens?
Well, no, when she gets to a certain now, I mean, she's
Now,
not lighting with
now,
your
now,
wife.
now we're happy if we light 60 seconds before Shabbos. Like we're in that phase where it's all, oh my
18
gosh.
minutes.
BJ was at the door. He waiting for me. We were close for a minute. I pulled up. 2 minutes before Shabbos. Mamish, I was happy. It was 2 minutes left. Usually it's like 30 seconds to go. So
where is Rabbeinu Tam?
Rabbeinu Tam.
Right,
So
exactly.
it's interesting. Like, what is the minhag? I had my daughter's too young at this point. I haven't really gotten to the
Right.
question of the shaila. Like when a daughter is a bat mitzvah, I don't know what happened in your house.
I don't remember.
Did she light and make a bracha along with Edna?
I don't remember.
Like, did she lit
I
her
was
own
there.
candles? You went to shul. Yeah, there you go. So okay, I don't know. Do you remember in your household with your daughter? Like, did she when she became bat mitzvah? Did she also light with a bracha like
Yeah.
next to your wife's?
Yeah.
She did.
They come together.
So I think with
My
me,
granddaughter
one does
does
and
not.
one doesn't.
She does not. Right. So it's interesting. I'm not. I have nothing intelligent to say about the topic. Honestly, I don't know if is it, but I'm aware that some people definitely do this though. That's something I have heard that a above bat mitzvah daughter will light, and certainly
Well, really, only one person's really doing the lighting.
in your situation.
Minor. You're talking
I mean,
about
for-
minor.
No, I'm saying if your daughter's a member of the household
Yeah.
and the mother's lighting and the daughters are there, right? So sometimes they may make the bracha.
One set of circumstances, right? But remember, the shul, I don't know if we still do it. When a girl became bat mitzvah, she got
Yeah, they still got it, the candlestick.
They get candlesticks. So what are you
Right.
supposed to do? Put them in a pencil? I mean,
So I would based on everything we've learned,
Using them.
based on everything we've learned so
I
far.
think that's part of the chinuch, that they're starting to light. Now the question is she saying
bracha.
bracha also?
So
I'll tell you in Bunny's case,
Uh-huh.
she because she wants them to learn it. That's part of chinuch.
Right.
The bracha too.
Right.
So I think
Yeah.
it should go both ways.
Yeah, exactly. I can see a case being on both sides. All right, let me take a look here. Let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah. Members.
Well, actually, but the question is, do they accept Shabbos?
Oh, I think anyone who's involved.
Like, if the mother-
I think
like,
I think anyone who's involved in the lighting should try to accept Shabbos at that point. However, we're gonna see in a moment here. We're going to see here in a moment. The reason I said try is because certainly if a man ends up being the one who lights it and he's going to shul, or if a woman lights it and is going to go to shul, it's something to think
The
about. Take a look here.
important thing is that you cut off social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That should have been cut off on like Monday morning. V'im ha'ish madlik, if a man lights, afilu hu mevarech al hadlakasa, he makes the bracha, uchedel el b'siv vav, as we talked about in the earlier part of the siman. Leika minhaga umutar b'malacha. There is no minhag that Shabbos is accepted upon yourself by dint of minhag. Sometimes minhag is very powerful. Like, oh, that's the minhag. Everyone does it. So when you do it, that's what happens, unless you have some other idea in mind. But even if a man is not thinking, he doesn't make it tonight. For him,
it doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter.
Interesting.
There is no minhag that would then force Shabbos upon him, and he's permitted to do malacha. When we call makom tov lahasas. But look, it's nice, better if you make a stipulation. But if you fail to do so, there is no minhag that guides him that now you have to do Shabbos. Mem gimel mekabel Shabbos. So you accept Shabbos, v'tis palal mincha tchila, and you daven. So when the woman does this, by the way, before she lights, because for her it's Shabbos, she should daven mincha prior to that point. The hoel dekvar kibla Shabbos, because then she'll have already accepted Shabbos. Shubi yeshali yispal tefillah shel chol. So how can you daven mincha if it's Shabbos for her? Can't do that. When there's no time for this, you have to make a choice. If you daven mincha, you'll run out of time to light candles because it'll already be shkia. So it takes 5 minutes to daven. Shemona Esrei doesn't take 5 seconds. By the time you finish, it'll be too late to light. So now you have a choice. So Yossi Tov Shetispal Arvish Shine, rather do two marivs, because when you miss a tefillah, you can make it up in the next davening with a double Shemona Esrei. We'll talk about that more in Tezvav. Better to do that than get yourself involved with potential of Chilul Shabbos.
So you're saying double. You're saying a double Shemona Esrei for Shabbos.
For Chilul Shabbos. Sorry, what was that, Simeon?
Rav, you'd be saying a double Shabbos Shemona Esrei for Mariv?
Yes.
For Mariv?
Two Shabbos Marivs, Shemona Esreis. Yes.
Even though you missed mincha.
Yes, it's an explicit sugya on the second amud of Perek Tfilas HaShachar. It's at the top of the page. The only reason I know that because I teach that to my students. It's a black on white Gemara. It talks about what happens when you miss mincha on Friday afternoon, or what happens if you miss mincha on Shabbos afternoon. Do you do two regular weekdays? And there they talk about where do you add in the Havdalah in the first Amida or the second Amida when you're saying Atachoran? Do you do both, one or the first one or the second one? So it's clear as daylight that you say, even though you missed the weekday, you do double Shabbos.
So this is so it's an obligation,
right,
to do it. And so there's no obligation. I don't see how anybody can say, well, if you missed it, then you have to do it double. And fact of the matter is, even when we talked about this at length, you remember Russ, and I don't know if you were Steve at the time too, but Tom, you remember. I mean, they said when we were talking about doing a mincha, an extra tefillah if you missed, right? If you're 100%, 99% always, then you do that extra. But if all of a sudden you say, oh, I missed mincha, I have to do it, but you miss mincha all the time, then you don't do that addition tefillah there, right? You just don't. I mean,
correct. If it's
so
been,
now
correct.
I have
if
a
it's
woman
been
who doesn't have a mitzvah. She's not incumbent to do this davening.
So it's interesting. The Gemara, when it talks about women as it relates to tefillah, it actually says it's not a mitzvah. They say it's not a mitzvah to say Shazman Garma where she's exempt. I know it's going to come as a surprise what I just said. It may be that there is no. It may be that she must daven every day, but to BJ's point, maybe she doesn't have to daven each tefillah every day. And certainly when you get to Mariv,
I remember that.
What?
Yeah, I remember
it's
that.
not a mitzvah to say Shazman Grama because the Gemara says it's a very powerful line in the Gemara. It's in Brachos. I want to say it's on Daf Chav. That it says why do women need to daven? The rachamim. Why? Because who doesn't among all of us need a little rachamim? Women need rachamim. Men need rachamim. We all need that. All of us have what to ask for from God. So on that svara, the women are also obligated to daven. So you're right that maybe she technically doesn't have to say the daven mincha. That she has to have a davening at some point. But if she's accustomed to always daven mincha, I would say that if she does miss it, she has the right, if she would like, to make it up. Yeah, I think she has the right to make it up then. I have to stop here. I have to go daven out in the gallery with the teens. But I wish everybody a freilichen rest of your Hanukkah, and it should be a wonderful week. And we'll see you next Sunday.